storm can shake my inmost heart, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
as I call upon your name. You wipe my tears away. Turning to you, I begin to praise. All sorrow fades away. Come away from where you are. Come away, turn your heart. I hear you say, I am your way. Come away to me.
How I need to learn to stay in your presence, dear Lord. Draw my heart with your bands of love and call me day by day. Come away from where you are. Come away, turn your heart. I hear you say, I am your way. Come away to me.
When I see you face to face, your countenance captivates. You transfuse me, I'm filled with grace. It's here I long to stay. Come away from where you are. Come away, turn your heart. I hear you say, I am your way. Come away to me.
I come away from where I am. I come away and turn my heart. I respond to you. I love your way. I come away.
UMCRO started as the Methodist Committee on Relief, MCOR, in 1940. It was started by Bishop Herbert Welch after the onset of the Second World War to respond to the suffering that was occurring primarily in Europe and of course throughout the world. UMCRO's work started then with addressing the problems that refugees were having at that time. Since then, UMCRO's work has evolved significantly, and UMCRO today is well known for its response to disasters, both in the US and internationally. And in addition, UMCRO expanded into the area of international development and sustainable development. United Methodists around the world can respond to disasters or human suffering through UMCOR. UMCOR works with annual conferences, aid organizations, as well as with partners around the world. United Methodists turn to UMCOR whenever disasters occur, whenever suffering happens, to help reach out to those affected. A few years ago, we spent some time discussing the UMCOR mission statement, which says, compelled by Christ to be a voice of conscience on behalf of the people called Methodists. UMCOR works globally to alleviate human suffering and advance hope and healing. I think a relationship with Christ will bring us to that point where we want to see less suffering in this world. I think UMCOR provides the means for that.
God's story, the Ten Commandments and the Golden Calf. So part of God's story is about one of the many times God forgave his family, and it begins like this. Remember how God chose Moses to lead his family out of slavery in Egypt? God wanted his family to be free and happy in the wonderful home he promised them, called Canaan. All they had to do was follow God home through the wilderness. The problem was, they kept disobeying God instead of following him. They kept trying to do things their own way. So one day, while the Israelites were on their way to Canaan, God told them what he expected from his family. Basically, how to treat each other, how to love God, and how to be part of his team. And with God on their side, the Israelites wouldn't need to worry about anything. This sounded pretty good, so Moses went up a mountain called Sinai to talk to God about it. There, God gave them 10 rules to live by, called 10 Commandments. Turns out, God had a lot more to say. He and Moses talked for 40 more days and nights. During that time, God's family got tired of waiting for their leader, so they asked Moses' brother Aaron to make them new gods to worship. But the very first commandment God had given Moses was, "You must not have any other God but me." Aaron and the people had just heard that. But Aaron wanted to make the people happy more than he wanted to make God happy. So he collected all their gold, melted it down, and turned it into a calf. That's a baby cow. They worshipped the calf and said, "These are the gods who brought us out of the land of Egypt." Well, God knew what was happening, and he told Moses to get back to the people. When Moses saw what they were doing, he was so angry that he smashed the 10 Commandments God had written for him on the ground. Then he burned the calf, ground it to powder, threw it into the water, and made the people drink it, because it's a big deal when we choose to disobey God. Finally, Moses turned to Aaron and asked what happened. Aaron said, "I threw their gold jewelry into the fire, and out came this calf." Even though the people disobeyed God, and even though they weren't all sorry for what they did, Moses begged God to forgive them. He reminded God how much he loved Israel. They were his special family. Of course, God did love them, and because Moses asked him to, God forgave them. See, God knew it would be impossible for his family to be perfect. That's why he sent them Moses, a leader who could show them how to follow God and remind God how much he loved his family. And for many years, God would continue to choose leaders, sometimes called prophets or judges or kings, who would tell God's family when they messed up and ask God to forgive them, because God loves to forgive. And that's a story of forgiveness. But that's not all there is. Later, God sent his perfect son, Jesus, to rescue the whole world. He did that by taking the punishment that we deserve. Now, everyone in the whole world can become part of God's family. And one day, we'll live with him in a perfect home, joyful and free, just like God planned all along. And that's a part of God's story.
Hebrew Bible lesson comes to us from Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 14. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, formed it in a mold, and cast an image of a calf, and they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." They rose early the next day, and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf, and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it, and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and of you I will make a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord his God, and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath. Change your mind and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever." And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring on his people. Today's gospel lesson comes from Matthew, chapter 22, verses 1 through 14. Once more Jesus spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his slaves to call those who had been invited to the wedding banquet, but they would not come. Again he sent other slaves, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited, look, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they made light of it and went away, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his slaves, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burnt their city. Then he said to his slaves, 'The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet.' Those slaves went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both good and bad. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, 'Bind him hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.'"
It's a
Today's message comes to us from Exodus, the story of the golden calf, and from the gospel, the parable of the wedding feast. Let's start with the wedding feast for a little bit of some of the symbolism that you'll find in there. And I'm pulling this directly from the Jewish annotated New Testament, which is an NRSV translation. Some of the images to know about. The wedding feast or the wedding banquet is a symbol relating to the kingdom of heaven. It says that the people made light of the master's invitation and time to come to the banquet. That represented a gross insult to the host, an insult, killing of the master's servants or slaves represents the tenants who moved from insult to rebellion. So it's talking about relationships, and the relationship is going downhill with these tenants. So the master, the king, sent out his troops and burned the city, which represents the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem. To whom they found out in the streets, Jews and Gentiles. Others will be invited to the table. And the wedding robe, one of the symbols of righteousness in faith. Doing righteous deeds, living in a righteous state, being righteous. Clothing is a symbol for that righteousness. And few are chosen, representing that many will reject Jesus and others will fall to false teachings. Those are annotations from the Jewish annotated New Testament. As our story of faith cannot be isolated from the Jewish story. It is an evolving story that we find. That evolving story continues in Exodus. Remember, we have Moses who has gone to Egypt and has delivered the people out of Egypt. And they are on their way to the promised land. It is a long journey to get there. And in the midst of the Exodus, we have the story with Moses going up the mountain. Remember, we had the story of Moses receiving the tablets, the commandments. And now we get to the story as the tablets have been delivered, and now we come to the story of what has been happening down the mountain with the people. Moses has been up that mountain for quite some time. And chapter 32 of Exodus begins with, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said to him, come, make gods for us, who shall be going before us. Make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So Moses is up there in a retreat. Sometimes you need a retreat, a revitalization, a revival. Moses is up the mountain. And the people, they're impatient, they're frustrated, they don't know what to think or to do. And so they say to Aaron, make for us gods. And Aaron falls for this. Aaron falls short of the righteousness that he needs to be. And he says to the people, okay, gather all your gold earrings, all your women, all your men, all your children. Remove those gold earrings and bring them. And then Aaron instructs that they be melted down, and a cast has been made, and they create this golden calf. They create a graven image. And they begin to worship like pagans, like the Egyptians, these graven images. And God becomes very angry. God instructs Moses to go down to his people. And God is going to smite them all dead. All those who have engaged in this perverse behavior of worshiping a graven image. But Moses, whom God called to go gather the Israelites and to draw them out of Egypt, rescue them from Pharaoh. Moses says to God, wait a minute, Lord. You inflict your wrath upon these people, and the Pharaoh will be able to say that this evil God has drawn the people out into the mountains and into the barren lands, only to smite them dead and destroy them, to wipe them off the face of the earth. God, we cannot allow that message to go back to Egypt. God, these are the descendants of Abraham, of Isaac, of Israel. These are the descendants, the people that you promised Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, that their descendants would multiply and that they would have favor in the land. It would not be right to smite them. In the story, Moses is pleading for these people, even though these are the same people that Moses has been complaining to God about. Moses recognizes their intrinsic value, that they have a sacred value. And he pleads with God for their lives. God hears Moses' plea. Moses' plea is a prayer. It's a conversation. It's a relationship with God. And God listens. And God alters course. Then instructs Moses to go down to these people and to put them on a corrective path. To go down and to lay down the law, and at the same time be God's representative of grace. In this story, yes, God is angry. But in this story, the powerful message of God's grace abounds. The Bible is about a relationship. The words on the page speak to a relationship. It draws us in to a relationship and offers us an opportunity to be part of a community. The Exodus is not an easy story. There are struggles along the path all the way along, and it has taken a mighty amount of time. And yet God is with the people throughout that whole time, throughout that whole story. That important verse 14 And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster he planned to bring on his people. A God of compassion, a God of hope, a God of love. It does not mean that God does not get angry, but there is this abounding grace that is there. Now back to the story that we find in the gospel. That grace extends out to so many. It reached out into a new community to invite people to the banquet. It's a story of discipleship and relationship. To be faithful disciples, to come into the relationship with God, and for it to be a faithful relationship. Where are you in your journey? Where are you in your relationship with God? So Jesus is preparing the banquet. And Jesus is inviting you to the table, inviting you to the banquet. But you have to be appropriately dressed when you come to the wedding. That appropriate dress may not be a tuxedo or an extravagant dress, but the appropriate dress is the desire to be in relationship with Jesus Christ, to be in relationship with God, to seek that relationship. For the invitation has been sent out, but we have to respond. We have the opportunity to respond or to reject. So some were invited to the banquet and they rejected it. Others were invited to the banquet and they came. And then there's that one crasher who came but didn't have the heart for the relationship. God makes space. There is space for you in the story. Even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of a hurricane for some of our friends in the South, even in the midst of a terrible storm, God is with us. And when God sends out that invitation, the transportation of safety will be with us. Amen. Where is it with your soul today? Will you open your heart, your mind, and your soul to be in relationship with God, to receive and to claim it, and to journey on the path to God? How is it with your soul today? May your week be filled with grace and love. And may you know you are a precious child of God, beloved and beautiful. And may you dress with the robes of righteousness. Does not require for you to be perfect. It requires for you to have the heart and the desire to be in relationship with God, to claim it, and to walk in discipleship. Some of us come to that place early in life. Others of us, it may be late in life. But God has sent out the invitation. And when you receive it, will you accept it and claim it and be blessed to the glory of the kingdom? Amen.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, no far off hymn that hails a new creation.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth.
How can I keep from singing?
While all the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. And though the darkness round me grows, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths. Since first I learned to love it, no storm can shake my inmost calm. I hear the music ringing, it sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing?
How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? the children and the children. May his favor be upon you.
And 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. So may his presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you, he is with you. In the morning, in the evening, and you're coming, and you're going. In your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, he is for you. 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 He is for you, he is for you.
And the good Lord bless you, may he keep you, give you grace, and may he shine his light so brightly upon your face.
May the Lord God bless you. Turn your face with grace and bless you. Give you peace and keep and bless you. Favor upon you, face and upon you.
Over for my sons and daughters till my cup run over, make it flow like water, Jesus, me feel your love, and you will give me sweet blessings from above. I say. Pray for each other so that you might be blessed.
Ooh, yeah. Amen, amen.
If God is for us, tell me who can be against.
Con su gracia sea sobre ti y mil generaciones, tu familia
Y tus hijos y los hijos de tus hijos.
que te cubra con su gracia hasta mil generaciones, tu familia y tus hijos y los hijos de tus hijos. Berhanumbe la yibra, почеситься у колені.
Et derrière toi,
À côté de toi,
tout autour de toi, et dans toi, lis avec toi, lis avec